Everybody, it's Matt Mayoka at NBC Sports Bay Area. Thanks for tuning in on this day, and please subscribe and like and leave a comment on your thoughts on what I have to say. And today we're going to focus in on the Senior Bowl, which is taking place the week of practices in Mobile, Alabama. And it's been a while. I think 2019. So yeah, 2019 was the last time I went to a Senior Bowl. And I know the 49ers, their mantra that year was Senior Bowl to the Super Bowl. And they were coaching that team, one of the teams in the Senior Bowl that season. So they went from being one of the worst teams in the league to being in the Super Bowl that very year, or at least that very season. And so 49ers have most of their coaching staff put together, and those guys are out of the building right now. However, the main people in the 49ers personnel department, they're in Mobile, Alabama. I saw John Lynch on TV as well as R.J. Gillen and Tariq Ahmad. Gillen and Ahmad are the player personnel directors for the 49ers, even though they're not called they're just called, each of them has the title player personnel director. So I always kind of look at the Senior Bowl as being the first kind of tentpole event as far as leading into the off season or being part of the off season, because Jim Nagy, the executive director of the Senior Bowl, has done a great job of making it really a marquee event in the NFL scouting calendar. I mean, I remember there was a time in previous Senior Bowls I'd go to before Nagy got there, where you'd look out there and you'd go, how many day one and day two draft picks are out there? Not a whole lot. Now there are a lot of those guys out there, some of the cream of the crop, and they've allowed underclassmen who have declared for the draft to take part as well. So what I did at NBC Sports Bay Area today was to list five players that just kind of random. I mean, there's a lot of players at the Senior Bowl. I certainly can't, talk about each one of them, but I just kind of pulled out five players that I thought probably worthy of keeping an eye on as far as positions of need, players that could fit the 49ers, and then kind of assigned around, or, a pecking order to when they could come off the board. The first guy I want to talk about, though, was scheduled to go to the Senior Bowl, but then he had to pull out because of an illness. And that's an offensive lineman from Missouri, Armand Membu, 6'3", 332 pounds. He played right tackle at Missouri. I think he probably translates or projects more to an interior offensive lineman at the next level, because he does not have ideal height for an offensive tackle at 6'3", and then the short arms, not short arms, but not nearly the arms or the wingspan that teams look for at an offensive tackle position. So, like I said, he's not there. So he was somebody I wanted to look at, because I've seen recently some people mock him going to the 49ers at number 11. He's also, I've seen, mocked to the Bears at number 10, but Armand Membu, unfortunately, not taking part in the practices or the game. Oh, by the way, the game on Saturday, it's at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, televised on the NFL Network. But kind of the interesting thing is everybody's already out of town. All the scouts, typically the scouts don't stick around for the game. Certainly the decision makers, John Lynch will be gone. They get more out of the practice sessions than the games. And also the game film is distributed to all the teams, so they can take kind of a more in-depth look and a more clinical look at the game film. One other guy I wanted to mention that I did not put in the story, Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Ole Miss. Going to be watching him to see how he does, but he's somebody that is a possibility for the 49ers at number 11. Now, when I did my first mock draft a couple weeks ago, the person I had the 49ers taking at number 11, and I don't know if he's going to, I don't think I'm going to mock him to the 49ers again, but that's edge rusher Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. And, not a lot of production for an edge rusher in college, only 4.5 sacks over 3 seasons, but his size, his length, his athleticism, his explosion off the ball, all those things have really stood out in the practice sessions. And so he will be a first round draft pick. Is 11 too high for him? It might be. I think if I were a team, I'd be a little bit scared off just because of the lack of production at the college level. But that's one guy that is potentially a guy the 49ers could look at. Like I said, I had him going number 11 in my first mock draft. Don't think I'll do that again. The next guy in line could be like a second round draft pick, and that's TJ Sanders from South Carolina. He is a defensive tackle. 49ers have edge needs, they have defensive tackle needs. And when you look at the 49ers defensive tackles that they have coming back next year, it's Malik Collins, Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis, and Evan Anderson, and that's it. So there's really an opportunity for them to add a defensive tackle that's somewhere in the draft, first 2 days, first maybe even early in day three. They can get a defensive tackle that helps them in that rotation. So TJ Sanders, someone to keep an eye on there. Another guy that I mentioned, a different position, tight end Elijah Arroyo. Um, Arroyo is a guy that could, when you look at the tight ends in this draft, it's pretty clearly Tyler Warren and the the tight end from Michigan, Loveland. Those are considered the top two guys in this draft, and then after that, it really gets kind of murky. Colston Loveland from Michigan. I do think the 49ers need more presence from a back end tight end position. It's not about, preparing next necessarily for life without George Kittle, but I guess a little bit it is. I mean, he shows no signs of slowing down, but it's also the element of being able to pair two tight ends together who can do similar things. When the 49ers have had Eric Saubert out there with George Kittle, Saubert not really a receiving threat, 11 catches this past season. So I think the 49ers could add a lot more offense, a lot more creativity, a lot more options for Kyle Shanahan if they had a young tight end who can also be a threat in the passing game. So, and the 49ers offense might take a different look in the coming years with Kyle Juszczyk's situation kind of cloudy. 49ers basically gave him an ultimatum a year ago, take a pay cut or else. And so if they did that last year, I would imagine they'll do something similar this year. So we'll see what the future holds for Kyle Juszczyk, but certainly his spot on the team is not guaranteed for next year. Okay, and then the next guy is, let's go with Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. He's an offensive lineman, shows tremendous flexibility, the ability. In fact, the two offensive linemen I'm going to mention are guys, Zabel could be a guy in the third round. The next guy I mentioned could be somebody in the fourth round. But with Gray Zabel, he played left tackle for the Bison, the FCS champions for North Dakota State. And he's got a little bit of an edge to him, good size, good athleticism, good feet, good hands. He could be a fit for the 49ers on day two of the draft. And then the other guy is Jonah Monheim from USC. Again, a guy who has a lot of versatility. By the way, Zabel has played, he played guard and center a little bit in these practices. NFL teams want to see a lot of times college tackles want to see how they would transition if they're moved inside at the next level. Because a lot of these guys, pretty much out of hand, they can look at it and go, he might have played left tackle or right tackle in college, but there's no way he can play that in the NFL. So Zabel's one of those guys who appears to be a better fit moving inside. And then with Monheim, I think he played right tackle 1 year at USC, left tackle 1 year at USC, and then his final year at USC, he played center and looks to be, he's not an overwhelming physical specimen or anything like that, but he just seems to have a really good feel for the game. And watching him in the 11-on-11 drills at the Senior Bowl, based on what I've seen on TV, he's able to get out there to that second level and make the kind of blocks, execute the kind of blocks that the 49ers ask of their offensive linemen and particularly their centers. So both of those guys kind of remind me in a sense of Dominic Pooney. Pooney was seen as one of the few guys in last year's draft who had the versatility to play any number of positions on the offensive line. And these guys are kind of the same way, although they certainly project more inside than they do outside. So those are some names to keep an eye on. I talked about Mimbu, who's not there. Walter Nolan, defensive tackle. Um, who else did I mention? Shamar Stewart, an edge rusher from Texas A&M. TJ Sanders from South Carolina, defensive tackle, kind of a smaller, explosive guy who can really get into the backfield. The tight end, Elijah Arroyo, um, and then the offensive lineman, Gray Zabel and Jonah Mannheim. So there's plenty of players, a lot of players, 100 players, 100 plus players at the Senior Bowl. So in the comments section, tell me about some of the people, in addition to who I mentioned on this one, that's caught your eye and who you think would be good fits for the 49ers and in what round of the Senior Bowl players. So thank you again for watching this video. Again, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment, leave a like, and that is it for now.